So Hannah, I want you to just start off by telling me, why have a vigil all the way in Texas?
So I don't know if you are familiar with our history here in East Texas. We've actually had anti-queer victims of gun violence twice now in hate crimes. In 1993 was Nicholas West. He was abducted and murdered by gunfire in 93. And then Ty Underwood was a Black trans woman in 2015 who was murdered by her intimate partner by gunfire here in East Texas. So we are very familiar with gun violence here and the threat of it. It's important to me to have a vigil, to have a place for us to have collective grief and mourning, but also to embrace the anger that comes with grief and the very righteous rage that comes with being on the attack. We have been in an increasingly hostile place for LGBT issues, especially when you consider the night that the shooting happened in Colorado Springs, Denton, Texas, just 2 hours away from us in Tyler. Denton, Texas was having a drag event with children. I think children were present. And they were trying to make sure that people could not get in and take pictures of the children that were there. And we had counter protesters. I say we, the LGBT community, had counter protesters there, also armed, trying to keep the place safe, keep people who would do them harm from entering the space. There's been a concern that there will be violence here in East Texas. We have a lot of conservative churches in this area that I do know, I am aware, have been having meetings to talk about the groomer issue, which is just bringing back the 1990s homophobia that I grew up with. And there is a very strong concern that in areas like ours, because we are a very small community, like Colorado Springs, they have one gay bar to go to. We are concerned that in our events here that these things will happen. So it's important that we have solidarity across the board to show that when you attack one of us, you attack all of us. And if it is safe for a queer person anywhere, we'll make it safe for us everywhere by standing together. And that is to say, there are so many East Texans who we tell you got to live long enough to get out of high school and get out. You've got to make it just that long. And it's important, especially nowadays, that we tell our youth, who are the people being attacked the most right now. They're coming after adult queer people as a way of attacking queer youth by calling drag queens groomers, which is an attack on trans people, which is not, that connection is not being made often enough, talking about the gender nonconformity. There's a need to tell people, there is a place for you outside of where you are now. And while you're here now, there are people here who are like you, who have the same struggle. And it is our togetherness and our unity that will get us through this. And solidarity is key. You attack a queer person in Colorado, it is an attack on queer people in other states. You look at the victim, what is his, Mr. Aston. You look at him. He wasn't from Colorado Springs. He was from a small town in Oklahoma, and he moved to that area in search of something bigger and better than himself and his community. And when you attack the queer community, you're not necessarily attacking people who are native to the area. You are attacking the transplants that move from these areas to places where there's little blue pockets of hope. And it's important that we get together and say, we can still have this, that we will not be going back in the closet. We will be raising our voices, and we will continue to live the lives that we've secured and the rights that we've secured with that. To do anything less is unconscionable.
So what do you hope to achieve out of the vigil? And I know that you spoke about, the overall community. What do you want people who may not actually be a part of the community to understand?
Well, what I'm hoping to do, my vigil is primarily community focused. So it's less so on the people who are not related, but if you're friends with queer people, the LGBT community, then you'll get a little bit out of it. What I want to achieve here is to call ourselves to action and call each other to rise to this occasion. In January, I will be launching some attempts to get our local community. We have quite a few organizations. I will be working best as I can with all of them to make sure that they get to Stop the Bleed training. That's something I was working on this afternoon. I would also like to get wound care kits to all of our groups that have events, because every time we have an event, there is a question about security. And if we are going to have these questions about security, then we will be prepared just in case accidents happen. I'm of a generation that did not have school shooting drill training. We have a generation of queer kids who do. And in the event that something like Pulse, like Club Q happens, we need to be prepared. And so I would like to see us, instead of resigning ourselves to fear, resign ourselves to action. We can be scared, and it's healthy to be a little scared, but we can also say, okay, from these ashes will rise a phoenix of us being more clued into what's going on within our own communities, more connected with each other within our own communities. And we're already seeing a lot of that here in East Texas. And I'd like to see an emphasis on making sure that funding goes into the hands of the organizations doing the work, either with classes and training for emergency preparedness, or even investing in things like transition closets and making it a little bit easier to live these queer lives. My allies that will be there or will be watching the live streams, their call to action is to support us in these endeavors. How can you help us with self-defense classes and get it funded? How can you help us get clothing and things like that to people, that it will make it just a little bit easier to take on what's going on and lighten the load just a little bit. The political environment, the way it is, it's very heavy. It's very mentally taxing. And I am having recalls of when Pulse happened in 2016 and what that was on our community, and the weight that it was, and how tired people got very quickly back then. There was a lot going on back then. And now, how can we know what we know now, how can we rise to the occasion today? And that starts with resource gathering and making sure we uplift the people in our communities, starting with our most marginalized community members, including our trans community.
Anything else that you want to add or that you think is important?
I think it is very important that the youth of Texas and Louisiana, I think it's very important that our youth know that their job is to be young people and do young people things. They are allowed to be angry about what's going on, and they are allowed to have their fear about it, and know that we have your back. Adult queers, we've got your back. And take some time for your joy and prioritize your joy, because it is our joy that is our greatest acts of protest. And just getting up in the morning and being who you are. Don't let the fear push you back into the closet, because that is what they want. I was nervous to do this interview, but it's important to say we're not going anywhere, and you aren't either. We're in this together.
Hannah, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.